Coming up today on the Nice Guys on Business.
Yeah, I mean, the stupid things we see come from both sides, but the thing we teach is, let me show you how to look at your weaknesses, how to look at your vulnerabilities, how to look at your threats. And you do that, you're going to really, beef up as an entrepreneur.
Searching for a boy in high school is as useless as searching for meaning on the Nice Guys on Business podcast. Running a business is hard. Being a business leader is even harder. The Nice Guys bring in top industry pros to help your business prosper in a tough world. Get real advice from real people to get you real results today. Now it's time for the Nice Guys on Business. Here's your hosts, Doug Sandler and Strickland Bonner.
All right, Nice Guy community, so get this. A lawyer that hates golf and plays in a band called Geriatric Steel with such hits as Get Off My Lawn and Teenage Daughter. I love it. This is a guy that I knew I would like. He's also the author of a book called The Art of Preventing Stupid. But his true superpower, from what I understand and listening to him on some other podcasts, and according to his wife, is napping.
Oh, yeah.
Let's provoke some business owners into becoming expert nappers, all the while keeping them out of trouble. Matt, I'm excited to have you here. Welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast, my brother.
Hey, thanks. I've listened to some of your podcasts, and you guys are nuts, so I want to be on your show.
That is cool. Well, I love having you here, and it's a good thing. We don't have a lot of great relationships with attorneys, except for those that are our clients, because we have to be friendly to them because they pay us. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, what is it about most attorneys when it comes to just building their practices? And I know, some of the stuff you specialize in, you've been highly successful at what you do. What is it about most attorneys that is just so, people just don't like so many of them? Why is that?
Well, I figured that out when I got to law school, because there is a selection bias for sociopaths and narcissists to want to go to law school. Okay. Because having a law license is in many ways just, a license or an opportunity to sort of terrorize the rest of humanity, right?
Right.
And
You're right.
It is. I mean, I was looking at this guy today that, picked a fight with me from down in Texas. And I looked up his website and I'm like, I know you. I've known you since I started law school. I have no idea who you are, but I know the person you are because, yeah. But there's also just great guys. I mean, I was on the phone with a guy, sent me a 4-page letter. He was from up in Kansas yesterday, and it still is from up in Kansas. Imagine that. And I'm talking, and we get along great. We work out the deal. We go, okay, yeah, this is, we size it up. And so it's the answer to your question is there's a selection bias for jerks.
Okay, so you wrote this book called The Art of Preventing Stupid, and I love the title. It's a catchy title. It will definitely bring some people to the pages. What are some of the stupid things that people do when it comes to, and you're dealing specifically with an entrepreneurial community. So talk from a business perspective for a second, not about the dumb things they do with, divorce and family law and IP and all that other stuff, but talk to me about business for a second. What stupid stuff they do?
Well, look, they do all sorts of stupid stuff. They do stupid stuff like, and like forming an LLC that's really a partnership masquerading as an LLC, so a multi-member LLC, and then they don't even have an operating agreement. And even if they have an operating agreement, they don't have what we call exit provisions in it of how you split the sheets if you're not getting along. Case on point, as we say in the law business, we've got one going up in North Kansas right now, and mom and daughter got into business together. Didn't do an operating agreement because they're always going to get along, right? And they're at the courthouse right now. How would you like to be at their house on Thanksgiving?
No.
Yeah, right. So, look, the particulars are one thing, right? But the thing we teach people is how to keep from making those stupid mistakes. And one tool we have, which should be up on our website, is called the Strong Protected Business Checklist. And that's a checklist that's a reverse engineering checklist of all the, most of the stupid mistakes that we see our clients make. And you can also look at it. An easier way to do it is probably go do our online assessment at davisbusinesslaw.com, because it's going to show you, okay, this is what you need to do. Now, anybody can email me and I'll send you the checklist, which is a derivative of that. The beautiful thing about that is what we did is we mapped it out by when you ought to be worrying about some of these things that you should put in place. So, for instance, when you're just starting your business and you got 1, 2, 3 employees, we're not worried about succession planning, and you shouldn't be, because you don't have jack. You've got a dream is all you've got, but you got 20 employees. You've got a business, right? And so, okay, so that's one piece of the puzzle. The other thing we teach people, and this is what the art of preventing stupid is about, is how to assess your threats and how to respond to those. But one tagline I use all the time is the companies that deal with their vulnerabilities are the ones that capitalize on their opportunities.
Absolutely. Well, there's no doubt. I mean, the people that are, education or knowledge is wisdom, and it's the challenge that most people have is they don't know what they don't know. Like you mentioned something at the top of this episode where you talked about an LLC and they didn't have did you call it their paper? What did you call it? Their
operating agreement.
Their operating agreement. Right. And I look at it and I say, well, we don't have that. I mean, we have a handshake, and we have a corporation, and we have some other things. And I know we need we need more stuff, but we literally went from being this, good buddies, hey, let's start this podcast, to, multi 6-figure production company. It's like, okay, well, now we've arrived here. Now what are we supposed to do? So we are probably the perfect example of the guys that are arrived at stupid because we just got too big, too fast. I don't know. I mean, what is it that most people do? They just kind of, they slide into this position. Like I turn around and I'm like, oh shit, we've messed up on a bunch of stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, and it's classic Michael Gerber myth is, it's not entrepreneurs that start business, it's hobbyists, or somebody who's working for somebody else and says, well, heck, I'll go do this myself. So most people move into the business owner or CEO or entrepreneur position, whatever the hell you want to call it, just sort of by accident, and then all of a sudden they're like, wow, how the heck did I end up here?
Right. Right.
And yeah, and that's what America's built on. That checklist, the Strong Protected Business Checklist, it's got some really good stuff in it, just mapping out the stages of growth. And we based the stages of growth on a great essay by a guy named Daniel Marcos called Evolve Yourself to Scale Your Business, that says, and we read that all the time as we've grown our business, going, here's, say from, I can't remember the numbers, but it's like from 1 to 5 employees, this is what you need to worry on. We looked at that from kind of a legal standpoint, but we also look at our job in maybe a different way than a lot of law firms, certainly with a lot more vigor or violence or whatever about it, because it really pisses me off when I see people getting in trouble, legal trouble. What we, we're like, okay, here's when you're just starting out, here's what you do. When you got 5 to 10 or 5 to 15 employees, this is what you need to worry about. Because guess what? You can't worry about it all. There's too much stuff to do. You got to go sell, you got to go market, you got to go deal with all the other crap, right?
Well, from a legal perspective, when does somebody know to get an attorney involved in the process? Because when you're brand new, you're thinking, I don't even know that I have an idea that's viable. And so you get started, and then you're 6 months into it, and you're like, I really don't have anything that I even want to talk to the attorney about. I have no plan. And then you get a year into it and you're like, I got a couple of clients now. I probably should get somebody involved. Is it too late? So when do we get somebody like you and your team involved in helping us build some ideas? And then an offshoot to that question, how do I know it's you and not, let's say, a CPA or a business consultant to get involved? How do I know the attorney is the right one to bring in, or maybe it's not? I don't know. So tell me that.
Yeah, well, that's a $64,000 question with about 45 moving parts, but I'll do my best.
Okay, do it.
And Um, you know, the we talk about in our firm what your general counsel should do, what your business lawyer should do. And I'm going to try and rip this off the top of my head at 4:30 in the afternoon. And
That's why you need to be on West Coast time. It's only 2:30 in the afternoon here.
yeah, they got to, look, get your contracts straight, get your corporate governance straight. And by contracts, I mean your internal contracts, your, employee contracts, your customer contracts, and your vendor contracts. Be really careful about those. And I went over corporate governance. A lot of small businesses worry way too much about intellectual property. And a lot of people find it really surprising that I say that because, patents are one thing, copyrights, patents we take, you need to take more seriously.
I know where you're going.
Copyrights are, medium level heat, but trademarks, I know so many small businesses went out and spent $5,000 on trademarks. And it's just not all that necessary because there's all sorts of common law protection for trademarks or trade names too. Mm-hmm. So, I run Davis Business Law. If somebody set up in Oklahoma or a market that we operate in and started billing themselves as Davis Business Law, I don't have the name trademark. I'd have their butts down at the courthouse like that. And the judge would look at them and go, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Right?
Right.
So, but guess what? A lot of attorneys are real happy to go, "Oh yeah, let's go do this trademark and let me charge you however many $1,000."
Right. Of course.
So, those are the sorts of things you need to concern yourself about.
When you start to get further into business, then what are the things that, you talked about your 0 to 5, your 1 to 5 employees, and then you talked about probably further down the road, you start to have more employees that work for you, or your dollars or your revenue starts to get bigger. When do you need to have somebody on your team as a regular meeting, and how often do you need to have those meetings with your attorney, your attorney friends?
Well, now that depends on how fast you're moving and how fast you want to grow, right? And it also depends on the complexity of your business. So, for instance, we're working with a company right now, and they were geologists, oil and gas geologists, but really smart ones, and really, had like geospatial engineering, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, "What are you guys?" And they discovered an extension to the Smackover, which is an old oil field in South Arkansas that's full of lithium, right? And some other guys knew it was there, but they discovered it was there, that it was bigger than everybody else thought it was. And so we went out and, they wanted to move fast. They had to capitalize. They brought us in. We've been with them from the beginning. And, we're getting close to sales. I've got a meeting down in Oklahoma City with them tomorrow. That's a fast growth company. We went out, leased up all the mineral rights, did it kind of in what we call the Disney World style, which we did it with a whole bunch of little corporations that nobody knew what was going on. And then all of a sudden everybody's going, what just happened? And that's a beautiful deal. But, if you're not trying to grow that fast, you just don't need all that much, that legal work, maybe once every few months or whatever. And, we have our Strong Protected Business program, which is, by the way, that's the next book. That's the title of my next book that I'm going to put out next year. And it just builds on the art of preventing stupid. But the Strong Protected Business program, allows us to come beside companies and help protect them. And we do it at various different levels.
Do many of the things that people do from a stupid perspective, do many of them involve a lack of planning, or do some of them involve a an execution error of whatever practice that they're going to go through?
Well, I think maybe this is a good spot to talk about this. Okay. You should be probably are familiar with SWOT analysis. Okay. That's where you draw a little cross and you go, what are our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? And, your strengths and opportunities are basically strategic planning, right? That's okay. These are our strengths. What can we do with them? And so, yeah, some people fail to execute well there. Now, the thing, we like the bottom half of that, strengths, weaknesses. Well, we like the right side of that, the weaknesses and the threats, okay?
Yeah.
Because we think that the literature, the business literature has done sort of an insufficient job of teaching people how to root out what their weaknesses and their threats are.
Mm-hmm.
And so we like to say that we're really the negative side of strategic planning. We are. And we have a lot of business coaches that work with us or use our materials because they're like, dang, you really help our clients root out where they're weak and where their vulnerabilities are. Because, man, you deal with those vulnerabilities, all of a sudden, you're the strongest player on the field. You're not making unforced errors. And so, yeah, the stupid things we see come from both sides. But the thing we teach is, let me show you how to look at your weaknesses, how to look at your vulnerabilities, how to look at your threats. And you do that, you're going to really, beef up as an entrepreneur.
As someone that runs a business, the business of law, how have you found your way to opening up? I think we counted 7 offices, 8 maybe, if you consider one of your offices. How have you found your way to doing that where most attorneys, unfortunately, kind of flounder around and they have a tough time with business development, with marketing, all of the things that, it takes to run a good business? How have you succeeded at that?
Completely by accident. How about that?
Okay, well, tell me.
Or maybe initially by accident and then by design. So I live in a small city and I had a midlife crisis and started a law firm. I was literally practicing out of my house 8 years ago, had a very sophisticated marketing strategy in that I did not have a web page and I wasn't in the phone book. I just didn't market because I had a great practice, but a practice is different than a business. And I stumbled upon a coaching company called How to Manage a Small Law Firm, really endorse them for just the mindset shift of looking at your law practice like a business. And one of my business coaches in there suggested to me, hey, why don't you start a small business law firm? You know as much or more about it as anybody we work with. And I'd taught business law for years at the college here. And so I said, okay. And I went out and to the bank and got my old paralegal back. She was the assistant manager. And we started the firm in my office at home with her at a card table. And we built this building, or we bought this building that I'm in now. And then we were just frustrated being here in our small market. And so I went to Oklahoma City and I figured out how to market. And by the way, I taught something last week. I taught to a group of entrepreneurs organization members in Oklahoma City. This is what I taught. There was a lesson on how to manage a digital marketing agency. Mm-hmm. And, most people are afraid of, or lots of entrepreneurs, let me say that, are afraid of engaging with the digital marketing agency because they just get overwhelmed with it. They don't understand all the bunk.
Agreed.
And by the way, digital marketers feed you complete bullshit all the time.
Agreed.
And I said that with violence and I cursed on your podcast and I don't care. Okay.
That's
and
okay.
I know you don't care. That's one reason I like being here. Because, the thing I taught them is I said, you guys first have to take responsibility for understanding that marketing is not about all the clicks. It's not about all the impressions. It's not about all that crap. And that's what your marketers are going to tell you. It's about the leads that you get. It's about the opportunities you get up to bat. It's about when you can get a qualified lead, a potential client on the phone. That's what counts. And you have to measure that.
Yep.
And then you have to tell your digital marketing agency, this is what I expect, and this is the growth I expect. And if you can't deliver it, then you're off the bus.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. I don't care how the sausage is made. I don't even want to see how the sausage is made. I just want to know, is my phone going to ring? And here's what my expectation is. If I pay you this amount of money, this is how many times I'm expecting my phone to ring. I'm not saying that you're in control of how many sales I make. That's my job. But if the phone doesn't ring, I don't care about SEO and all the other stuff. Of course, I want that, but I don't care how it's done,
Yeah.
So I just want to be able to close some deals. And the best way to do that is get my phone to ring. So I'm having more conversations with building more relationships with people.
Yeah. Preach it, brother Doug. And, but entrepreneurs don't get that. And they'll go into these conversations with these, these digital agencies. And, Google is the Yellow Pages now. Okay. I mean, I saw Yellow Pages as I was walking out of a restaurant the other day. Oh, look at that freaking dinosaur. The hell is that?
Totally.
And they had a stack of them. I was like, what? But that maybe is the answer to your question, is how did we do it? I got real serious about it. And we've gotten really pretty good at it, because I'm like, I have a spreadsheet that says in each market, we track our leads, and I know how many, qualified leads I got every given month. And then I have it mapped out of what my goal is for that, for that market for the year. And, it's a step up every month, because I expect those markets to grow. I expect my opportunities to grow in those markets. And, we're real happy with the agency we're with right now. But that led me to change agencies earlier in the year. And
I'm sorry, I was just going to ask you something about your book, but no, you were going to give me an end, but I'm happy to have it if you have an end.
No, I mean, you have to take responsibility, first and foremost for your marketing, and you have to understand it, and you have to spend time on it, because if you're not getting the opportunities, if you're not getting the call, and you being the whole firm, your company,
Agreed.
you're just pissing in the wind.
Agreed. And the fact that you're even focused on it to any degree, I know the partners at a big law firm are very concerned with business development, lead gen, and where those are coming from. They're not the ones on the phone, and their attorneys cannot be expected, or maybe they could be if they're hired with the understanding that you're not only going to be practicing law, but you're responsible for making it rain. And if you don't make it rain, then you're not going to be considered at all for partnership at this firm.
Well, see, that whole thinking is foreign to me. And what I mean is, Davis Business Law is run like a growth company. It's a law firm, but it's got one owner. And I make it real clear to everybody, that all the attorneys that come to work for us, initial conversation, look, we do not have a partnership track. That's not what we're going to do here, because law firms, I've been there, they're run like fraternities. They're run like crap, and they're run by committee. And then, somebody wants 6-inch crown molding in their office, and then everybody's got to have 6-inch crown molding in their office. And it just becomes this stupidly managed outfit.
Yep.
And, we run this company with, I've got a COO who used to be, he's a retired Air Force JAG colonel, used to answer to a 4-star general before he answered to me. I've got a CFO who's fantastic, Jamie's firm admin, and we got customer service. And that's how you run a company. And law firms operate in this bizarre, antiquated world. And I mean, Jeff and I, one of my lawyers from Oklahoma City, one of our lawyers, we were down at one of the big firms in Oklahoma City. And, here's these poster or paintings on the wall, custom paintings of, the old partners holding their stupid law books, doing this. And we're just like, oh, yawn. I mean, we're just going, you don't have to have that. It's just all this pretension and narcissism and crap. Can you tell what I think about it?
Well, I can tell what you think about it. And I love the fact that I'm sure that there's going to be people in our community, especially the ones that listen to our show, the ones that are our hardcore fans, the ones that would appreciate the fact that you're dogging on the old school law firms. You are practicing law. Even as a guy that's not a 20 or a 30 something, you're at least in your 40s, I think, right?
Man, I'm 54.
So as a 54-year-old, somebody that is actually understands there is a better way to practice law, and if you do it this way, I think you'll benefit from it. So that's very cool. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, and we don't want our attorneys. I mean, the thing, and by the way, that we do is we don't want our attorneys going out and having to do business development and having to go to the Rotary Club and having to go join, this Chamber of Commerce and crap. That's a horrible way of lead generation in the law business. What you do is people will call you when they need you. And you got to put yourself right there. You got to be just in time.
Yep.
That's a Jay Baer principle. And then you keep the relationship and you build the relationship because, our return client rate is fantastic. And because we take great care of our customers and, we deal with the things that people hate about law firms, which is, on one hand, lack of communication and, we call it lack of communication. Then the mushroom treatment, which is part of it too, which is just get kept in the dark and fed BS, right?
Well, the book is called The Art of Preventing Stupid. If you like Matt's style, obviously he fits well in our community right here, and he fits in very well with me. DavisBusinessLaw.com is the website. Go there and grab what is the name of that, the checklist that they have again?
Yeah, just have them do the online assessment. And if anybody wants to drop me an email, I will shoot them the Strong Protected Business Checklist, which really is the online assessment with reasons for why they're there, and we're just it should be up, but I don't know why it isn't because guess what?
No worries.
I got 3 or 4 things going on.
No worries. If you just send them an email, it's mdavis@davisbusinesslaw.com. Certainly check out the book. You want to make sure that you do that, The Art of Preventing Stupid. I'm assuming it's either available on your website or on Amazon somewhere?
Yeah, Amazon.
Okay, head over to Amazon to grab that. Matt, thanks for being on the show, and thanks for sharing your comedic approach to the practice of law. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks, man.
Nice guy community. Never underestimate the power of nice or the power of having a seasoned attorney that just doesn't give a shit, like on your side, and he's going to be working for you. Special thanks to Matt Davis. All of his information will be right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the nice guys on business, I'm Steve O'Brien. Because it's such a fine line between stupid and clever.